United States, the 4-time NAACP Image Award winner, including named Best Host for the last 2 years. He is married to the Reverend Jackie Hood Martin, author of Fulfilled, the Art and Joy of Balanced Living, and Wedded Bless, a 52-week devotional to balanced living, and the children's book series, Hannah's Heart. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is with pride and a great deal of admiration that I introduce our speaker for this evening, Brother Roland S. Martin.
How we doing? All right, first thing, turn the damn lights on. It's like we're in the club. Can't see anybody. We turn the lights up, please. I like to see people. I think a sparkling ball about to come down to the center, about to be a disco. Y'all think I'm joking? It's dark in here. I got to see people. We doing okay? All right, good. Am I the only person who's asking where the hell is dessert? I'm not the only one, huh? At our table, we were asking, yo, no peach cobbler? No pound cake? Turn them all on, turn them all on. Like, no peach cobbler, no pound cake? I'm just saying. Like, really? And they really thought I wasn't gonna say anything, huh? Also, congratulations to all of the honorees. And also, am I the only one who felt like we kept getting admonished? Clap! Not enough. Stand up! Most of my table said, she's a bully. I was cracking up. It was. We were having a little too much fun at our table, absolutely. Y'all can tell. But all I'm saying is, between now and I finish this speech, somebody need to run out and get some dessert. I'm just saying, unhappy military people at my table, I'm just saying. Don't make folks mad with guns, I'm just saying. Shout out to all, first of all, I sent a text to President and CEO Derek Johnson. He says he brings his regards. Also, Chairman of the Board Leon Russell, your Chairman Emeritus, Rosalind Brock, Karen Towns, who was the Vice Chair of the Board. I have covered the NAACP for years, and so know many of them. We were at the convention this year in Detroit, also last year, live streaming proceedings there. And so there are a number of Freedom Fund dinners I've done across the country. And there's no doubt we would not be where we are today, not only as a people, but frankly as a nation, without the work of the NAACP and also the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We will certainly give it up to them. Certainly want to thank everybody for being here. Certainly all alphas in the house. And those of you who belong to other youth groups, especially Sigmas, who was talking all kind of trash when I was signing books over there. I tried to tell them, I was shocked, because I ain't met that many Sigmas under 55, so I was shocked. I was like, wow, you're a unicorn. And see, his frat brother Jose said, look man, leave him alone. I have seen him go off, leave the person with the microphone alone. But his own frat brother wouldn't listen. Jose, he wouldn't listen to you. He kept running his mouth. I don't know what's wrong with him. Okay, hold on. Where is she? With that bright yellow dress. Right there. That Carla, y'all, Carla literally tried to kill me in line over there. I need to come about my practice to get a saline infusion. I was like, what the hell are you trying to inject me with? I'm like, black people, when you got your sneak experiment, don't be trying stuff. Yo, they were sitting, I was like, no, I said, does it involve a needle? She said, yep. I'm like, you will not see me. It's not gonna happen, not gonna happen. But again, I had a good time chatting with folks over there, of course. We're signing books, and I'll be signing some a little bit later. I am happy to be here. I'm sure glad that I don't have any warrants, because I don't think we will be able to get onto the... I'm trying to go to the hotel. Brother Austin was like, I need your ID, you gotta go in, you gotta get a pass. I'm like, what the hell we gotta get a pass for? You know, this is a military installation, so I was like, damn, Trump done blocked my ass. I was prepared to get up there and they're like, you on the list. So Obama was there, I can call the White House. All the black people who work there left, I can't call nobody in the White House now. So thank goodness we were able to get on the base, and so we appreciate that. I am glad to see you, glad to be here. Not my first time in Kentucky. And I do have a few things that I want to talk about, that I want to share with you. You talk about, with your theme, the issue of defeat hate. What really jumps out at me, I think, in terms of where we are as a nation, I think comes from Dr. King's book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? And to understand, to sort of set up where we are, what is going on in this country. This year, of course, we are commemorating the 400th anniversary of when the first 20-odd Africans arrived in this country who were enslaved. There are a number of things happening all across the continent of Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal, as they are South Africa and other countries, as they are embracing what is known as the Year of Return. And those of us who have visited the continent before, the many who have been going this year as well, it has really been a transformative experience for many people. Because the reality is that is the beginning of civilization, despite what his story tells you. There's his story, then there's history. And what it has caused a lot of people to do is to really try to get an understanding of who we are as a country, where we are going, and really try to explain what in the world is really happening right now in this nation. It is amazing to me to listen to people when they see children and adults in cages on the southern border, and people say, oh my God, this is not who we are. Well, if you totally ignore 243 years of American history, then you could easily say that, but the reality is that is who we are, because that's who we have been. If you say that, that means that you have no understanding of the institution of slavery. If you say that, you have no understanding of the 92 years of Jim Crow, which we call slavery without shackles. The reality is that is who we are. And the only way we truly begin to understand how do we confront America today moving forward is if we understand what we have been, what we have gone through, and then really what is happening right now. It's very interesting when I'm on television and I'm sitting here listening to these various panels, which are largely devoid of black people. And then, of course, that's because the executive suites in many of these media operations are also devoid of black people, which is one of the reasons why we at the National Association of Black Journalists have been holding the media institutions accountable, publicly calling them out. I'm Vice President Digital on the board of NAACP, my third stint on the board. And the reason that is important is because the reality is the media is one of the most powerful institutions in the world. Do understand, anywhere in the world where there is a coup that takes place, those of you in the military understand this, the first thing they get control of are the guns, because you gotta have the military first. But the second thing that they always get control of whenever there's a coup, media. Television stations, radio stations, newspapers. Now, one of the first things they do is shut down the internet because it's a flow of information. That shows you the power of media when it is second to guns. because that's how we're able to speak to the public. Trump understands that because of how he utilizes his Twitter feed as a weapon and how they went through the campaign showing empty podiums, and you heard those crazy rallies and the comments that were coming out at those particular events. That speaks to, in terms of understanding, again, how media is used. Hitler understood how to use media. Dr. King understood how to use media. People who do things for good and do things for bad understand the power of media. And what is happening right now, and I have really been focused on this for the last decade, folks are walking around saying, I just don't understand what's going on, what's happening, why are we seeing this rise in hate crimes in this country? I mean, like, what is happening? I thought this was kumbaya, we were all getting along, and this was all fixed when we elected a black president. And what exactly is going on? And what is really happening right now in this country is that we are 24 years away from America becoming a nation that is majority people of color. And if we really want to be honest, there are a significant number of white Americans who are scared to death of that happening. This is not just an American thing. It also explains to you why you have such pushback against immigration in European nations, because what is happening is white folks around the world, again, numbers don't lie, are not having children at the same rate as people of color. In fact, in this country, in the next 5 years or so, in 8 to 10 states, the annual white death rate is going to be higher than the annual white birth rate. And so this nation is becoming a browning of America. Last year, for the first time, the majority of people aged 25 and 54 who got jobs were people of color. By 2039, the majority of America's workforce will be people of color. That is actually happening. And so what's going on is this whole battle with, oh my God, what's going on? And it's not as a demographic thing. What it really speaks to is this whole worldview of how we see America and how white Americans see America. And I'm going to be clear, I'm not saying every person in America, but you have to be honest about what is happening. See, you take the reaction to folks when Colin Kaepernick first chose to sit. Nate Boyer, who was a member of the Special Forces, who said, really, you can honor folks better by kneeling. And that's where the kneeling came from. But what people didn't quite understand was that when he was talking about police brutality, no one wants to acknowledge that whenever you see a cop brutalizing somebody, there's an American flag patch on their uniform. See, the reality is, if you're black in America, you view the flag a little differently than how white Americans have been raised. First of all, if you understand Jesse Owens, then you understand Jackie Robinson, then you understand African Americans who had to go through the sports field, living, working overseas, how they were treated in other countries, and then coming back to America. We talk about how Hitler would not shake the hand of Jesse Owens, but also Franklin Delano Roosevelt would not receive Jesse Owens at the White House. See, we criticize Hitler for not shaking Jesse Owens' hand, but the American president wouldn't shake his hand. Jesse Owens was honored at a banquet in New York for his amazing athletic achievement and how he brought honor to America, but he had to go through the kitchen. Jackie Robinson wrote in his book, I Never Had It Made, he said, I will never salute that flag, I will never sing that song, he said, because I know the hell my people have had to go through. And he served in the military. What I'm saying is that it's a different worldview. We've been told that flag and singing the national anthem is about American pie, we all together, things will all work out great. Black people are like, yeah, but you know, when black folks were lynching their uniforms during Jim Crow, please explain to me what that was about. See, it's a whole different worldview, and the problem is that if you haven't walked in those shoes, you don't quite understand what that means. And so what is happening now in this country, this notion of, well, wait a minute, hold on. Y'all don't see America the same way we see America. Yes, you're correct. Because our experiences have been different. I was actually at an advertising event, and it was pretty interesting too because we're on a panel and they were talking about, they kept talking about Latino media, Black media, and Asian media, and they would say mainstream. I said, well, hell, if we're gonna call it Latino media and Black media and Asian media, we'll just call it mainstream white. So a guy stood up, this is really true, a guy stood up, white guy stood up and he said, you know, I got a question. He said, there was this bus that came by and it was an ad that was in Spanish. And the first thing I asked myself was that product for me? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, the ad was in Spanish and the people who were in the ad were Latinos, so I was wondering, was that drink for me? I said, now you know how we feel. For the first time, he actually saw himself as an outsider because he was watching an advertisement that didn't include anybody who looked like him, and it freaked him out. When I worked with the Warsaw Telegram, I'll never forget, I was at the copying machine and I was making some copies, and I looked into the news, the editorial room where the editors were. Dang, there's one black person in the whole meeting. So one of the editors came out, Mike Minikini, and I said, do you ever notice it's only one black person in the meeting? He's like, no, I never thought about that. I said, okay. I said, if you went to the Women's Chambers of Commerce dinner, how fast would it take you to figure out you're one of the few dudes in the room? He's like, probably real quickly. I said, okay. I said, so you went to the Black Chamber of Commerce event. How long would it take you to figure out there ain't that many white guys in the room? He said, probably real quick. I said, but if you went to the Chamber of Commerce event that was largely all white, wouldn't you recognize what the room looked like? He said, no. I said, see, now you understand what I feel like. I said, see, Mike, I am cognizant of every room that I walk in because I had to understand every room I walked in. I said, you are now in a position to where you don't see people looking like you, so now all of a sudden you're a little bit uncomfortable because this is not natural and normal. He said, you're right. And folks, that is where we are as a nation. Where we are as a nation is that whether we want to acknowledge it or not, America has been positioned as a white nation. Corporate America, military, sports, education, all through a white prison, a white male prison. How long did it take women to get the right to vote? How long did it take black women to get the right to vote? We didn't really need a 1964 Civil Rights Act or 1965 Voting Rights Act, 1965 Fair Housing Act, had we actually simply followed the very Constitution that was created. Because those acts were actually passed to enforce what was already in the United States Constitution. What we're dealing with is a nation that has had to grapple with its reality of how it has kept a group of citizens depressed, denigrated, and pressed down, and then say, well, why can't y'all keep up? Well, do understand history. And we're dealing with that. We're dealing with how do we deal with a nation that if you do the numbers, this is the 400th anniversary, the first 20-odd Africans arriving in the United States. 243 years of legal sanctioned slavery by state governments and the federal government. 10 to 12 years of Reconstruction. 92 years of Jim Crow, which came into place because of the Great Compromise of 1877 after a contested election in 1876 when the Republicans and the Democrats got together. The Democrats said, if y'all remove the last remaining federal troops out of the last 3 southern state capitals, we'll leave the free slaves alone. It won't be any problem whatsoever. It's all good. Republicans agreed to it because they wanted to keep the White House. and the first thing they did was reinstitute essentially slavery. Slavery without shackles. When you had a peonage system that was still put in place, when you had black folks that were still thrown into prisons, where what used to be slave patrols turned into what is now called police departments. When you start walking through that 92 years of Jim Crow, then you go to the Black Freedom Movement. If you use 1970 as the marker when we were technically fully free Americans, meaning we can vote, we can go in the hotels, we can go in the parks, we can swim in the same swimming pools, we can live where we want to live, technically. That means African Americans have only been fully free Americans for 49 years. In November, I'll be 51. Which means I was born into an America where I was not fully free. Which means that my nieces and nephews are the first generation of Martins born fully free Americans. See, once you now understand that, it now sort of changes your view. Like, hold on. We've only been fully free for 49 years. Yes. And so when we have these conversations about the average white wealth being $110,000 and African Americans being $5,000, when we see that it will take African Americans more than 300 years to catch up economically where whites are today, then you have to begin to ask the question, how did this happen? What happened? What took place? And see, that's what we don't actually want to deal with, because what happens is people say today, say, look, hey, I didn't own no slave, I don't know what you're talking about, I wasn't born then. Yeah, but you are a beneficiary of a system that gave you a leg up. Just the other day, The Atlantic wrote a story where the University of Texas in the 1950s put into place standardized testing to purposely keep black folks from entering the University of Texas. I'm a native of Texas A&M graduate. So, University of Texas was the premier institution in the state. The president of the University of Texas, is in their archives where he literally says to a group of people in Houston, don't worry about Brown versus Board of Education. We have figured out a way to keep the niggas out. We will institute standardized testing. They determined that 74% of all black students will be able to be kept out of the University of Texas because of that implementation. Which means that since the 1950s, white students in Texas who went to the University of Texas had the advantage of going to the state's premier higher education institution. Black students were systematically left out, and I guarantee you that if you then did a study to say what has been the economic benefits of UT graduates from the 50s and compare them to the economic benefits of African Americans who were forced to go to HBCUs, you might see a significant gap. Once you start opening your eyes to this reality, you go, this is who we are. Which then forces us to say, how do we now confront who we are and what we have been if we're unwilling to even acknowledge it? And that's where we are right now. This unwillingness to acknowledge our past and to confront where we are going. And that's why you have such visceral pushback. That's why just yesterday, the House had a hearing dealing with white nationalism and white supremacy, and there were 4 experts who testified. I'm sorry. There were 3 experts and Candace Owens. I need me to unpack that. Because see, everybody else who covered this focused on the crazy stuff she said. I unpacked why was she there in the first place. Now let me unpack this for you. There's a hearing to deal with white nationalism, white supremacy in America. The FBI Director, Christopher Wray, testified in July that there is a pervasive threat in America because of white supremacy. Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, Jewish synagogue in Pittsburgh, shootings in other parts of the country. What took place, Emmanuel in Charleston. Numerous examples. He said a pervasive and persistent threat. That was the FBI Director, Christopher Wray, in earlier this year, March or April, and again in July. So they have this hearing yesterday. 4 experts, white male, 2 white females, then a black female. White male, forgot what his title. White female, Stanford University. White female, Center for American Progress, and Candace Owens. Her rationale is, I'm here as a black person. That's your expertise. Which means we could have been got somebody black off the street, put them in the chair, test out for a car and say, hey, I'm an expert because I'm black. The members of Congress wouldn't ask her many questions. So Jim Jordan from Ohio and Mark Meadows, they get together and they say, she's not getting enough questions. So they come in and do something I ain't never seen. They literally said, we're gonna give you the bulk of our 5 minutes to say what you want to say. Now y'all know members of Congress love to talk. They ain't never turned over their time to somebody to talk most of the time. So she starts making all these crazy statements, and guess what makes the news? Her crazy statements. That was a point, and if you watched my show last night, if you go to my YouTube channel, I call this the deconstruction of this video. That was a point where when she finished one of her crazy comments, Jim Jordan had this smirk on his face that literally said, mission accomplished. Republicans were not interested in an actual House hearing on white nationalism and white supremacy. They purposely sent a black woman to the panel to talk about black on black crime, black men not being in households as the most important issue and not white nationalism. It was by design to disrupt and shift the conversation away from the actual purpose to some other stuff. So while everybody else was reporting on her crazy comments, I said, no. The real issue is, why did they invite her in the first place? Because that was the intent. And see, I got friends who are Republicans. I got numerous folks, Alfonso Jackson, former Secretary of HUD, Mike Williams, who prosecuted Klansmen when he worked in the Reagan and Bush administration. I can talk about any number of people, Elroy Saylor, Angela Saylor, K. Cole James, Michael Steele, J.C. Watt, so many others. But what we are dealing with now is one political party who is afraid of the demographic changes because they don't exist in their party, and they literally are trying to shape this nation to hold on to as much of old America as possible because they are scared to death of what is coming down the pipeline. And they're pushing the buttons of white Americans in the Midwest, in the Southeast, and the Southwest in order for them. They're playing into this notion of white fear of what is coming and who should you be afraid of. And what we have to do is be willing to stand up and call those things what it is and call it out even if our friends are saying it. Now let me be real clear, I'm born and raised in Texas. This is not a Republican or Democratic thing. This is an American thing. And I dare say if there's any Democrat or Republican who is silent about what is going on in this country, shame on them. See, I'm not willing to sit here and mince words and play the whole go along to get along thing, because what I'm seeing in this country is the reality that unfortunately you have one party who is playing serious games with the emotions of people and not speaking honestly. And what we have to understand is that we cannot be silent on this. Don't stand here and tell me you're the party of Lincoln, but you're defending Confederate statues. Don't tell me that you're the party of Lincoln, but then you're against civil rights. Don't tell me that you're the party of Lincoln, but you're sitting here impacting and implementing voter suppression across this country. When you have gerrymandering taking place, where it's by design you're targeting black voters. When a federal court in North Carolina rules there was surgical precision of the targeting of black voters in order to suppress their votes. I will not be silent in the face of tyranny. If somebody is riding an elephant, daring calling themselves patriotic, it is not patriotic to deny folks the right to vote. It is not patriotic to split digits up based on racial lines. It is not patriotic when they are pushing the buttons of race and then somehow saying, no, this is about us being all together. No, that is not what is happening. And we must be willing to call it out, and I need white Republicans and white Democrats to be willing to tell their friends, I will not allow you to sit at my dinner table or play with my children if you are unwilling to speak truth to what's going on. See, let me be real clear. What happens at these events, these kumbaya events, if you are black or white or Latino or Asian or male and female or straight or gay or Christian and Muslim and Jewish or Hindu or atheist or whatever, and when you come to the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner, this is not the event you come to for you to get your black check off event for the year. This is not the event when you get your I'm black for a night card. I'm speaking to everybody in the room. Because first and foremost, it's called the NAACP Freedom Fund Dinner. And if you are not fully about the freedom of everybody, including people of color, what you're actually doing is being a hypocrite sitting in this dinner, because really what should happen is every single person who sits in this room should be willing to walk out of this room saying, I am recommitted to the cause of civil rights. I am recommitted to the agenda of the NAACP. I'm willing to stand with the NAACP to put the voice against folks who are harming this nation. What it's not about is to come here, take pictures, post them on Instagram, put them on Twitter, but to say I was there. No, this is where you come to say I am willing to stand with you in the fight for what's right, for justice, for equality, and that's what this dinner is supposed to be about. Too many of us have become so complacent in the face of evil in this country. And we have allowed our pocketbooks to shade our view. When you have people who are unwilling to call discrimination taking place from the White House because they got tax cuts, that's shame. If you're unwilling to call out people trying to take health care away from Americans who are sick because you got a tax cut, then that is simply dead wrong. It was amazing to me to sit here in 2016 to read these stories about folks in Kentucky, one of the brokest states in the union. Elect a Tea Party governor, vote for Trump, but then say, I sure hope they don't touch my Affordable Care Act. Well, what the hell did you just vote for? People talk about government handouts when it comes to folks who are poor, and really what they mean is folks who are black and brown who poor poor, because the reality is, if you study the numbers, it's a whole bunch of broke white folks in Kentucky getting checks right now. And last I checked, if you black and broke and you white and broke, guess what? You're broke. Broke is broke. And at some point, we got to call it what it is. We got to have folks willing to stand up and say, how can America sit here and criticize those who want to say we should forgive student loans when we have a president who created a tariff crisis costing farmers in Iowa and Wisconsin? We have spent $28 billion on handouts, subsidies, to farmers, and the bailout was only $12 billion. Oh yeah, see, I can count. The auto bailout and the Wall Street bailout was $12 billion. We've already spent $28 billion giving welfare handouts to farmers for a problem created by the guy handing them the check. But then we say, we can't find them. And I don't understand individuals who voted for Trump, who say they patriotic and love the military, but you would take billions for military programs to build your wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for. I'm sorry, I'm just confused. See, I know somebody is saying, well, and I know at least a few people like, well, are you going to say anything bad about Democrats? Yeah, they ain't doing enough to call out those fools. That's the best you're going to get. Why? Because I'm being honest about what is happening before me. I can't be silent as a black man in America when you have the Department of HUD led by a black man who grew up in public housing in Detroit, where they're rolling back civil rights. I'm not going to sit here as a school choice supporter, somebody who supports charter schools, and watch what Betsy DeVos is doing in the education department, allowing those thugs and frauds with for-profit colleges to be able to come back in and operate as vultures, taking millions and billions away from students and giving them degrees that are absolutely worthless. I'm not going to sit here and be silent as you have, of course, Wilbur Ross running the Department of Commerce, who lied about the census question and then tried to say it wasn't his idea, but it was his idea and he was busted lying about it. I'm not going to be silent when you had Scott Pruitt and the Environmental Protection Agency allow fossil fuel companies to come in and just run rampant all across this country, and we are choking and dying. When you have coal workers who can't even get their health care because they're also getting messed over. I'm not going to be silent about what is happening in the USDA, when you have folks in the Department of Agriculture who are quitting, who understand when they say, well, we're going to just give y'all a box of food because we want to cut back on it, when we are the so-called the greatest nation in the world, and we're paying folks not to grow food, but you got Americans who are starving every single night because of hunger. I'm not going to be silent about that, and nor should you. This moment we're living in is calling for people of conscience to stand up. The moment we're living in is calling for so-called Christians to learn how to practice real Christianity. Deep Bonhoeffer Christianity. Reinhold Niebuhr Christianity. Christianity is about actually believing in the word, helping the poor and the disenfranchised, and not using your Bible to simply preach a prosperity gospel when you're the only person getting paid. And I'm talking about you, Paula White. I'm talking about you, Franklin Graham. I'm talking about you, Ralph Reed. I'm talking about how in the world can you have so-called Christians who are silent when it comes to some of the language coming out of the White House. That's because they're getting invitations to the White House, because Franklin Graham was praying the other night at the state dinner for the Australian Prime Minister, when really somebody should be saying, bring in a real preacher and not a fraudulent preacher. Either you prophetic or you're partisan. But you can't call yourself partisan and prophetic at the same time. America is in a crisis because too many Americans are sitting in our nice, comfortable homes, going on our vacations, not concerned about somebody else, until we ourselves run into problems. I've been using the hashtag, we tried to tell you. Every time one of these folks voted for Trump, all of a sudden, I can't believe he did that. Hashtag, we tried to tell you. Dairy farmers in Wisconsin filing bankruptcy. We tried to tell you. Coal miners in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell won't even meet with them. How insulting is that to be a constituent of a United States senator and he won't even meet with coal miners but will pimp them in commercials? A U.S. senator should meet with any of his constituents or her constituents. But see, they didn't come with a check. That's why he wouldn't meet with them. And he only met with them when he got called out. We are living in a moment that is calling for people of conscience to make a decision. Either you are going to stand up and fight with all of your might against the evil that is being presented to us, or do me a favor, stay at home, shut the hell up, and get out our way. Because what you need to understand is in this moment of crisis, your children and your children's children are going to ask the question 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years from now, where did my mama and my daddy stand in that moment? Where did my grandparents stand in that moment? We can't sit here today and talk about Fannie Lou Hamer and talk about Ralph Abernathy and talk about Dr. King and Reverend Jackson and Andrew Young and talk about Constance Baker Motley and Ella Baker and Diane Nash and talk about the Black Freedom Movement and Rosa Parks and can't talk about, of course, Bob Moses, talk about Bob Russell. We can't talk about all those folks in the past tense because we need present day folks who are putting it on the line. I know some of y'all sitting here right now are saying, well, I'm not one of those folks. I'm not a well-known person. But the reality is the Black Freedom Movement was not successful. It wasn't for regular, ordinary people who did extraordinary things. It was the people who did Operation Breadbasket in Chicago. It was the folks who shut down Selma, who shut down Birmingham, the folks who put it on the line all across this country. This is the moment where people of conscience have got to make a decision as to whether or not they are willing to stand up and use their power and use their might and use their voices to change what is going on in this country. And you can't sit there looking like a stiff tree stump saying, well, he just being just too tough on me right now. Because if I'm shaking you up with what I'm saying, if I'm striking at your core, God sent me here for a reason, because somebody needs to wake you up out of your drunken stupor and say, it's time for you to get in the game. It's time for you to stand up. And as long as there's breath in your body, as long as you may not be able to walk, but then you can will yourself into somewhere. If you got to walk or a thing, if you got to crawl, then you do what is right to change what is going on in this country. This generation cannot allow hate to return to this country. This generation cannot allow bigotry to return to this country. This generation cannot be the generation that makes it worse for their children than the previous generation. Every single person in this room can change this city, can change this state, can change this nation. But none of that can change unless you change, unless your family change, unless your house change, unless your street change, unless your church change, and your block, and then your city, and then your nation. We have the opportunity to change America for good if only people have the capacity to use all in Mississippi for the Black Freedom Movement, beaten to a pulp, could not talk. But when they asked her baby what happened, all she could say was freedom. Mouth was swollen, eyes swollen, lips swollen, but she said one word, freedom. And that's what this is about. It's called the Freedom Fund Dinner for a reason. So what is required right now is for alphas and kappas, and deltas and AKAs, and sigmas and non-Greeks, and Boolans and Masons, Freemasons, everyone to use their power to say, how can we stand up to what is happening in this state? You have elections coming up. You got to use your power because we understand. Maynard Jackson said it's the 3 B's taught by his grandfather. The ballot, the book, and the buck. The ballot means you vote. The book means education. And the buck means use your economic power to change something. If you think Mitch McConnell needs to go, send his ass back on back. If you think his governor is not doing what's right, throw him out of the governor's mansion. If there's a mayor or a state rep or a state senator or county commissioner or a city councilman who is not doing right by the people, mobilize, organize, and throw them out. This is going to require folks to stand up and fight and get in the game. As my grandmother Bertha Woodson Tandy said in 1937, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight.
Now that's what I call getting us in shape. Thank you, Roland Mark, for that inspirational speech. We thank you for speaking the truth. And we thank you for shaking us up. And for just slapping us in the face with reality because we need it. So I hope that this put a fire underneath you and you realize the importance of why we're here today and what we're doing and how much work we have to do yet. So I want everyone to be recommitted to civil rights because we have to be. So again, Roland, thank you for shaking us up and getting us back on the right track. We could not say thank you enough. This time, I would like to ask for our president, Ms. Joyce Beasley, if you would please rise and give us some remarks. We're going to follow Ms. Beasley with, yes, please give her some applause. She's our president. And we're so grateful for all their Ragland, and please, ladies and gentlemen, stick around.